You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another thought-provoking episode of Ask Drone U. I am your impetuous host, Paul.
Oh, don't be so hard on yourself.
It's actually, you're right about that.
I am Rob, and I am very excited to be here with you. It's always fun to sit in this chair and hang out with Paul, and to know that you guys are out there. So thank you very much for spending a few minutes of your day with us. We know you have a lot of options, and you're choosing to be here. So that's awesome. But please choose to send in a question at askdroneu.com. We actually are getting a lot more people either through our chat on the website, which is cool. We love hearing from you. But I'll tell you what we're doing primarily is just saying, look, we simply don't have the bandwidth to answer those level of questions, which is most of them, via chat on our website or even email in most cases. We just don't have time for the volume. But if you send your questions here, not only will your question have a better chance of getting answered, but then a lot more people benefit from that answer and from your question. So, because like we've said over and over again, you are not the only one that has the question that you have. I don't care what it is. So, thank you. AskDroneU.com.
I don't know. Yeah.
Let's hop in if that's where we're at. So Drone U Fly In is our sponsor. We really want to see everybody at the Drone U Fly In. Do you have anything to say about the Drone U Fly In?
Other than the fact that I'm crazy excited to provide a drone conference where people get to learn specific skills that are going to help them with their business. They're going to capture media that they can use to market and advertise themselves. They're going to do it in an area where no other drone pilots are going to be allowed to do that. Yeah, it seems pretty exciting to me.
And I'll just mention this about the Drone U Fly In. Because it's in Santa Fe, if you've not ever been there, bring your spouse, make it more than just coming for the fly-in, because Santa Fe is actually it's a very unique location, particularly for the U.S. And I think you'd have a great time. I think your significant other would have a great time while you're doing the flying. If they're not involved in that part of it, there's going to be a lot to see and some really cool places to hang out at, some amazing world-class spas, if they're into that, world-class food. We hope that you'll be there. It's going to be a great time, and Santa Fe really is a fun place to visit. My wife, so we live in Albuquerque. We've been here for decades, and it's one of our favorite places to go. It's 45 minutes up the road. Wouldn't want to live.
It's actually a really pleasant drive.
It's a pleasant drive, and it's just a really kind of laid back, several hundred years old city that is really cool to see. So
it is actually the oldest capital city in the entire country, and some people have fought that, but history stands the test of time. So 16,
I didn't even know that.
16, before we were even the United States, they were the capital city of this region of the country before we had even expanded west.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And we've located a hotel that's right by the plaza, which is sort of the coolest main area near in Santa Fe. So you'll be staying right there if you choose to stay in the hotel that we've set aside for everybody. And anyways, I could go on and on because I'm so excited about this event that's coming up here in about a month and a half. So don't wait.
I'm excited too, guys, and girls. I want to make sure really clearly that everyone should come to this. We had a huge showing from the Women in Drones group at the last fly-in. What was it, like five of those ladies, excuse me? Excuse my vernacular, just know my heart's in the right place. It's that simple. But I'm really excited, and I'm hoping that we can give them a ticket or two to give away as well. So really excited. You're definitely going to want to be there, and the fact that it's selling as well as it is goes to show that people agree with us. It is an experience and adventure where you're going to learn, you're going to have a lot of fun, you're going to be challenged in the right environment, so that if something happens to you, well, you're going to be in the right place to be taken care of. Join us, DroneUFlyIn.com.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Paul. Hope you guys are doing well. This is John McClain, Yippee-Ki-Yay, out here in New York. I am curious about whether or not there's a way to export from Pix4D to create an augmented reality, something that we could use the Oculus Rift as with our powerful gaming computers that we have to operate Pix4D, to maybe put those on and view it like the Google Earth. maybe one possibility would be to export our Pix4D mesh, 3D mesh into Google Earth maybe, and then use Google Earth's VR platform. I don't know. Do you guys have any ideas, any thoughts? Is there something out there? Are people already doing this? Just an idea. This would be cool for people to try on their goggles and see the site in first person. What do you think?
I think, John, that we love the way you're thinking, because this has actually been very recently a pretty hot topic in our DroneU community. And some really interesting ideas, and some people are attempting to do some really fun and cool stuff with this. So I bet you have some thoughts on this, Paul.
Well, do you understand the why? I mean, it's cool to look through these let's say houses, these models, these environments.
I think there are a lot of whys. There's so many applications for this.
I want to go down the rabbit hole here, Rob. The drone industry needs to know why you would want VR.
Wow. I mean, there's so many applications. We've talked about some of them. I think one really cool application is to give people access to experience things that they might not otherwise be able to experience. I think you could do some incredible training through VR, through creating environments where people can go learn in a safe environment because of the VR environment. That's a couple of things that come to mind. I'm sure there are many others that you have in mind.
Well, I know that in construction with BIM 360 that they are using interior models done with things like Matterport to quote unquote walk through the building with people to show them, okay, if we're gonna be working on our HVAC, this is where we want the pipes run at this level in the hallway at this elevation. This is why. If we continue to move through the model, you'll notice that this pipe is gonna run adjacent to a gas line, and we're worried about the potential thermodynamic exposure from the hot gas line to the PVC pipe. And so we would like to utilize this model to measure that distance and make sure that we're gonna be outside of the distance of really causing any thermal warpage to that pipe over time. But also, what about if, we're not only in, there's so many reasons for this. Emergency management. Imagine if you had a 3D model of every building so that you knew how to navigate a building in the event of an emergency. Imagine if you're a cruise ship and you had a 3D model of the entire cruise ship so that people could put on their VR headset as soon as they get in their room, watch the safety briefing, and then be able to walk through the hall literally on their VR goggles and understand every safety route out of the building. I mean, we just had a conversation about liability. I feel like I could sue a cruise line right now because they don't have a method of showing me every alternate means of safely evacuating.
Yeah, like we said in the last show, litigious society.
Yeah, I'm just saying here, okay? Sure, it's great to show people how to do their job. Sure, it's great to show people how to do a safety briefing. Sure, it's great for aircraft mechanics to be able to work on something in real time without, what is it called? But it's also really great for things like historical preservation, where if you want to take a scientist who maybe is physically disabled in a way that he can't go explore Chaco Canyon to do some research on the preservation of that site, well, if NPS would let us get in there and map it without touching it, we could have a beautiful detailed 3D model that someone could walk through and study and annotate and draw on to maybe try to further understand how the society used places like Chaco Canyon. So, we could do this historical reservation, but we can also bring people in to these amazing environments that maybe they never had an opportunity to go to. In fact, I just mentioned a business model and idea, a detailed one, via a voice message to you. And this isn't new for Rob. I probably send 3 or 4 of those a week to him.
I love it.
But
Keeps me young.
but I mean, I have a completely separate idea on how to use VR for a business model and plan on doing it, and thus I'm not going to share it here. But you know, just like Ray Dalio said, just like what's his name? I'm not your guru. Tony Robbins.
Oh yeah, Tony Robbins. Yep.
VR changes the way that we feel about things.
It does, and think about the learning environment you can create for kids of all ages and things that you can expose them to as far as a different worldview than their little... You know what? This is actually very exciting because I think about some of the kids that my wife has taught in some of the rougher parts of Albuquerque, and most of these kids, I'm talking high percentage, north of 90%, north of 95%, have never even left the Albuquerque area, much less the New Mexico area. And we can expose them and get them excited about other parts of the world.
What's one of the biggest benefits of traveling, right? Broadening your horizons, learning about new cultures, being compassionate with those people to understand that we're all innately different and we're all innately human. What if we could spread the broadening of horizons, the compassion for other cultures?
Yeah, just a love of life, a love of your fellow human beings, and like you said, an appreciation for the plight of other people, because we all think, and at least at some point, we think that we're getting really philosophical about this VR thing, but it just shows the power of it, right? Because it could expand our worldview, our kids' worldview in some really incredible ways. So this is all beyond just the fun that VR can be.
Well, Japan, the value of life is what a lot of people acclaim their crime success to, is a high value of life. So if these kids were able to have a higher value of life, what would the rate of crime, how would that be affected? Let me take this one step further. What's one of the biggest concerns with teenagers, high school, college? What's a big problem in New Mexico and a lot of states?
I'm not sure what you're getting at, but...
Drinking and driving.
Okay.
What if every year, randomly too, you can't make this a routine thing, otherwise it loses its value. What if randomly every year, principal plucks 1 kid per day? So it's a personal experience. They pluck 1 kid per day. Hey, come in my office. You're not in trouble. I know that you're experiencing the world in a new way and you're learning how you want to experience the world. I want to show you something because I care about you and I want to make sure that you experience the world, but you may avoid situations that put you in danger. And then they put the VR in them. They're having a really good time. They're in a suburban. They're all partying and they're having fun and it's a good time. And they walk into the club and he can see the club and it's really cool. So you've got the kid enticed right now. He's excited. He's paying attention. Okay. And then you take the VR navigation back into the car and have a horrible car accident. And you map a real car accident and show dead bodies on the ground. All the people that he was just interacting with in VR are now dead in front of him. I know Mr. Sensitive over here is like, ooh, I don't like this. But what are the things that teach us, right? It's experiences.
Sure.
It's failure. What if we could experience failure without the consequences of failure?
Yeah. For sure.
What effect would that have on DWI?
Yeah, I mean, in many respects, it's along the same lines at a deeper level of what we try to tell people every day, which is learn from our mistakes, right? So in that scenario, you're learning from other people's mistakes, very tragic, sad, awful mistakes. But nonetheless, I think it actually can bring some value to what that poor family or person went through to have other people not go and do the same kinds of tragic things. We could go on and on because it's really exciting.
We talked about the why for probably a little too long. Yippee-ki-yay is ready to put us in Nagasaki Tower and throw us out of the window.
Only in a VR way? Or?
That actually might be possible.
I'm down with that.
Okay, so really quick, when we're talking about, though, the practical application of doing this, what are the things that you need to know? Well, first of all, whenever we're doing point cloud creation for the point of VR, we have to remember that we're going to be focused more on the visualization of the model rather than the accuracy of the model. So oftentimes, I won't even use ground control points when it comes to 3D modeling a subject when it comes for the visualization of said subject. Now, we just did a live stream for members in the DroneU community where I was talking about editing photos before putting them into Pix4D and talking about the formula that I used, what worked, what didn't, to get better looking imagery from these 3D models. Now, there are guys out there like Parker who use capture reality to make more realistic models. And they look, honestly, I think there's probably only one person who's made a better model than he has, and
he does amazing stuff.
And he showed me that other person, so actually says a lot about Parker's humility. But that said, when we're trying to create these realistic 3D models, our acquisition of imagery is going to be very different. Our processing is going to be very different, and then our export is going to be very different. So just really quickly running through the workflow, and I'm just doing this to kind of, recap for everyone who's maybe thinking about coming to a mapping class, because we have one in Dallas coming up, and I'm going to go over this in Dallas. We have been asked from certain people to create these highly detailed 3D textured meshes for the point of VR. And in fact, I gave a talk at the Pix4D user conference on creating these super high quality 3D textured meshes in complex environments. And anyway, without going too much in the detail, remember that the acquisition when we go out there is going to be a 3D acquisition. We're talking about a quad grid with a triple or 5 orbits, utilizing the formula that we teach at the DroneU mapping class. No, I'm not going to give that out right now for free. That would just be silly. So we're going to use that. We're going to go back, and instead of processing step 1 and stopping to add in our GCPs, what we're going to do is we are going to process the data set as a whole first. And then what we're going to do is see if that we have to separate the data sets to process 2 data sets separately and then tie them together with manual tie points. And in my Pix4D user conference class, I talked about the real keys to eliminating a high number of blocks and a high number of other issues that just cause building misalignments and cause a lot of issues. So you process a step 2, let the point cloud generate. Obviously, in step 1, you eliminated all of those uncalibrated images. You made a decision on whether to process the imagery in separate projects or together. You go to step 2, you process. I have a special formula that I use to eliminate noise automatically that saves me a lot of time. It took me probably 3 years now to learn what that secret formula is. Again, you can learn it at the DroneU mapping class. And anyway, going further, then once you clean up the point cloud, that's when you export the 3D textured mesh. There's also another secret formula in changing the settings of the 3D textured mesh to change the size of the overall 3D textured mesh, and then changing the octree depth, which is essentially the depth at which details will be shown, to put it in like the most simplistic, basic vernacular possible. And then from there, this is the key point that he's talking about. What do I do with my 3D textured mesh from Pix4D to get it into the Oculus Quest? I think he said the Oculus Rift, actually, to the Oculus Rift. What are the different ways that we can do that? Now, there are a couple of different ways. First of all, you have to essentially find an application that's going to work in VR. And then what you have to do is, prior to finding that application, make sure that you have the best 3D textured mesh possible. That's really going to come down to the program that you use. And I talk a lot about Pix4D. And why do I talk a lot about Pix4D? Well, because it's the most accurate point cloud generation product on the market, hands down, period. Proven over and over and over again. We talk about DroneDeploy, and we talk about, orthomosaics and disaster reconstruction. And we're now including DroneDeploy in our new enterprise training programs because they have everything that you need to scale a drone mapping program. And Pix4D really doesn't. And it's just difference of focus. That's all. But what I rarely talk about is who creates the best 3D textured mesh. And a lot of you guys and girls have heard me talk about Capture Reality based off of what Parker has done. But because of what Parker has done, it's made me dive even deeper to figure out who makes the best 3D textured mesh. And I first learned about one particular software because a cell tower data aggregation company was showing me 3D textured mesh of antennas that have high reflectivity of light, and it looked really good. And I was like, who produced that? So I did some digging. You can always find the answer in the metadata. So I went digging, and it was Bentley. Bentley is a program that's, again, used for inspection services and whatnot. Now, DroneDeploy, Bentley, in my opinion, are terrible at point cloud construction. But Bentley is the best at 3D textured mesh construction, which is the data product that you use for VR. Okay. Capture Reality is a close number 2, but the systems that you have to implement to work with it are frankly not scalable. There's way too many steps. You take the 3D textured mesh out, export it as a medium and then a high res, then you mesh them together. Then you take it into another program and you shrink the size of the 3D textured mesh so that you can upload it to things like Sketchfab. But then you take it and you put it back in to Capture Reality once you've got it at the correct size, and then you texturize it and then put it back out. And there's 7 or 8 very complex steps for what Bentley does in one.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, you could just write software to actually do all those steps.
Bingo.
But
Bentley did it.
Bentley's done it.
There's a lot of reasons.
Which probably makes Bentley very expensive as well.
This guy's really smart. Have you not figured that out yet? So yes, Bentley's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people don't use it. It's just that simple. So it does make the best 3D textured mesh. Now, what do you do once you have your 3D textured mesh? Like I said, you have to find an app that works with the Oculus Quest or the Oculus Rift. There's a couple of options. I have been exploring one option in my very limited amount of time. I really wish I could take 2 months off and go learn myself. I know that sounds really weird for a lot of people, but I really am on a quest for knowledge.
It doesn't sound weird because when you learn, then you teach, and everybody benefits.
That's true.
So we might need to build that into your year somehow. I don't know if that's possible. It is possible.
Everything's
Just have
possible.
to make it happen. Carry on. 3D textured mesh.
I want to talk about this whole sabbatical
thing.
We will,
just not now.
Okay, I'm excited. Okay, so there's a couple options. Anyone who's working in construction, engineering, surveying, architecture, then you're familiar with Revit, okay? Revit is by far the best application when it comes to working with 3D reconstruction because you can add objects in, you can add so many facets, but also Revit has an app that works with Oculus Rift. So I do not know the file type that works with Revit, but I do know it's possible to export your 3D textured mesh, import to Revit, and then view it on the Oculus Quest via the Revit application in Oculus Quest. Now, that being said, a lot of people have asked, can you use Sketchfab? Yes, you can use Sketchfab, but the VR There's a couple of caveats that make the VR rather difficult in viewing sometimes. Like, first of all, if you haven't set the scale of the map in Sketchfab and you pull up the map in Sketchfab in VR, you get this really funky error that's going on. And I think that's why a lot of people are like, Sketchfab doesn't really work. Well, you can't forget to set the scale of your map or your 3D textured mesh in Sketchfab before you make it VR ready to be viewed in the Sketchfab app in Oculus Quest. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this. So let me just like recap that, right? You go out and you get all the images, you process it, you make your point cloud, you clean it up, then you create your 3D textured mesh, then you export that into Sketchfab, then you scale it, then you add everything that you need to add, then you go and make it VR ready, then you go into the other Sketchfab app inside of Oculus Quest that you access through the goggles themselves, and then you can view it. Now, a much better option is Revit than that, but a lot of people who don't have access to AutoCAD or Autodesk and that application may find it cost prohibitive. There is another solution called Unity 3D. Unity 3D is very similar. It's really made more for gaming engines, and I believe they do have an app as well for Oculus Quest. The last one that I really want to talk about, because this is something that I have been super deep diving into, which is called Twin Motion, which is VR, but with algorithms. And see, this is what I mean by algorithms. What do I mean? Notice there's leaves falling off the trees. Notice the trees are moving in the map. Mm-hmm. So what this does is adds the real dimension to your map. So the wind blowing through the trees, things moving around, people walking around, this actually brings your map to life. So this is like a whole new level. This is the type of crap that you see on what's the Chip and Joanna Gaines show. She's a big Revit user, but I've noticed she started using Twin Motion because people have started walking in her models. And
really?
Yeah, so
good for her.
So if you want to know how to take over HGTV, then just work with this guy, flip some houses, and I'll show you how to make the cool visual animations for TV, and we'll be a winning duo.
Oh, there's just not enough time in the day.
No. Oh, I love this because it's exciting too, because while it's very technical, it's also very creative. That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
So, if you are like me and you're in media, the amount of easy corporate jobs that are out there when you learn how to do something like this is absolutely stupid.
Yeah, you will blow them away. Mm-hmm. They will be begging you to come do work for them.
I couldn't agree more. So, okay, so he asked, which apps can we use? There's Sketchfab, there's Revit, there's Twin Motion, there's Unity 3D. There's another app, though, that I wanted to discuss. It's called Prospect. I have not actually tried this app out, so I do not know. But it's a collaboration-based application that you're supposed to be able to support any 3D file formats and be able to view them and upload them. Also, this is supposed to be used for, we talked about what BIM is, and we had that guy on the show a long time ago and saying BIM is yesterday. It's now called VDC. So Iris VR, which makes the Prospect app, is really for construction, modeling, and design, and bringing that all into VR. So what you're already used to working with, Prospect is like taking it into the goggles.
I'm blown away.
Well, this is why I said I wanted
speechless.
to wait a week until we answered this, but I thought we already answered it, and then I told John that we answered it in the group and realized we hadn't actually done it yet.
So, putting you on the spot a little bit, we need an advanced mapping class that teaches this. Is that
we do, but
in the thinking?
Well, I mean, it's funny. We had our owners meeting and we never made it to strategy, and that was one thing I wanted to discuss with you today at lunch. But while we're trying to get our props program, this is the next. I told you guys. I said last year I really want to do this. Because here's the thing, right? Everyone loves flying drones. STEM education is awesome, but no offense, most STEM teachers, they love the idea, they love the excitement, they love the material, they want to help kids, but oftentimes they don't understand how to take it levels deeper. And what if you could look at a kid in the eye and say, do you love playing video games? Do you love playing video games, Rob?
Yes.
Does Jake love playing video games?
Saminas does.
Okay,
To a
Saminas.
fault.
Okay. Thank you for taking me down this train. What if you could look Saminas in the eye and say, what if it was your job to make the environments that all of those video games play inside of? You get to create your own world how you see it and learn how to take the real world into a digital world. Would that excite you?
Absolutely.
Would it excite Saminas?
It would actually, yeah. He's very creative, very smart. And it makes me think about back in the day. And so when I was a kid, one of the things I used to do, I'm going to admit this, was I liked video golf, right? But the coolest thing about what I found was a game whereby you got to design your own course. Now, obviously, the graphics and so forth were not great. It was a long time ago. But that's what actually got me excited about that game. I didn't care as much about playing the game. I cared about designing my own course to play in my own game. So yeah, it's very real, and I think kids would dig it. Not all kids.
So
it's another avenue.
The
for
way
a
that I
creative
would
kid.
do that is I would just go map Sandia golf course, and then I would throw it in Revit, and I would move the sand traps around and move everything around the way exactly I wanted it. Export my 3D textured mesh, put it in Unity 3D because that's the gaming engine that Epic Games and Twinmotion uses.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in Unity 3D, and then as long as you could tell the game server which URL to pull the environment from, I don't see that actually as very difficult at all.
Yeah, great. I mean, I think, I don't know how much kids would enjoy that particular application now, but for me back then, it was revolutionary because I was essentially creating my own game to play, which was really awesome. But yeah, I mean, you think of all the different kinds of games. I can't remember the names of them, but they're very environmental. Not VR yet. I mean, it's still on a television screen in terms of what most kids are doing, but it is taking them into this environment. And so I got to be honest. I mean, there is a part of me that might be a little paranoid, but it's also a little nerve-wracking to think about going. I mean, we've seen movies on this, right? There are negative effects to this kind of technology, just like any kind of technology. And so I know people out there are probably listening to this and thinking along those lines, or at least wanting us to be aware of that.
Then go watch the show Altered Carbon.
Yeah, I mean, I've started, I haven't finished it, and it's pretty wild, but it is something to be aware of and to promote responsible use of this kind of stuff. Doesn't matter the technology, there are going to be bad players, and so we don't want to dwell on it, but I don't know why I feel the need to just bring that up.
If we're going to start philosophizing, then
Let's not.
We need to educate America on a lot of other things, too.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I'm not saying that you're wrong.
I
I'm
know
just
you're not.
saying that
I know you're
that
not.
can be applied everywhere.
Like I said, it doesn't matter the technology. I totally agree. I
wonder when America will wake up and realize that we are our own worst enemy until we're educated enough to make true objective decisions in how government is going to run our lives. And I think that is so evident in remote ID right now. But for a lot of other people out there, I don't think it's so evident. And in modern times, it seems like we are retracting all the lessons that we've already learned in history and repeating the same mistakes as far as governance and society is concerned. And everyone's like, whoop, right? And I think it goes to show, a lot of people talk about Orwell, right? I don't think Orwell had it right. It was the other guy who was like Orwell. And I can't remember what book that was in where they were discussing Orwellian nature versus the other artist or the other orator who said, it came down to this, right? Orwell said, I'm afraid of the day when society doesn't care enough to want to make a difference in government. That's what I'm afraid of, that they essentially are too afraid, or they're not too afraid, but they're too distracted to essentially make their own objective decisions. And the other author, his name starts with an S and I can't remember it, talked about that's not what we have to worry about. We have to worry about when no one cares to stand up anymore.
Yeah, and gosh, we're really going to get
All right.
philosophical
Anyway,
if we keep going.
we like these deep conversations.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy them as well.
I hope
If
so.
you do, leave us a review. Anyway,
If you don't.
if you don't, well,
Sorry.
don't let us know. Light a candle somewhere. Anyway, maybe let us know. Anyway, that's going to do it for us today. Hope you enjoyed this very deep, thought-provoking episode of how you take your drone maps into VR to use them for really cool stuff.
Indeed.
On that bombshell, my name is Paul.
My name's Rob.
This is Ask Drone U.